Everything all right? Good to see you.
Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started with today's MPO meeting. This is my first one. I have not been to an MPO meeting in a very, very long time, so I'm incredibly excited to be here. It's also really nice to see so many people I haven't seen in a very long time. But we will go ahead and get going on this, so I will go ahead and call this meeting to order and hand it over to Dave Hong.
Thank you, Secretary. I will read the Notice of Non-Discrimination. You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. You may also read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.bostonmpo.org/MPO_non_discrimination. For the virtual meeting, for those who are joining us virtually, all participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. Board members can mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raised hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raised hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you're on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact Stella Jordan via the chat box at sjordan@ctps.org or 857-702-3675. I'll read the accessibility statement. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. For those joining us virtually, Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: web content, accessibility guidelines 2.1, level AA standards, and revised sections 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, please contact, again, Stella Jordan via the chat box or via email at sjordan@ctps.org or by calling 857-702-3675. For general housekeeping, a few reminders. For speakers at the table, please turn on and use the microphones when speaking and mute when you are not. Roughly at 11:25, we will break for 15 minutes. Restrooms are located past the security desk to the left, and emergency exits are past the glass doors down the stairs in order to exit the building. Thank you, and I will pass it back.
Thank you. I will now hand it over to Judy Taylor to call the roll.
Thank you. Mass DOT seat 1.
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is profoundly embarrassing. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. We all knew you were here. Mass DOT seat 2.
Seat 2, John Rashad, representing Highway Administrator.
Mass DOT Highway Division.
John Romano, Mass DOT Highway Division here.
MBTA. Massport.
Sarah Lee, representing Massport.
MAPC.
Mark Drayson, representing MAPC.
MBTA Advisory Board.
Good morning, Brian Kane, MBTA Advisory Board. Thank you.
Advisory Council.
Leonard Dickens, Advisory Council here.
City of Boston, seat 1.
Yasha Franklin Hodge, representing City of Boston.
City of Boston, seat 2.
Good morning, Michelle Wu. Nice to see everyone.
At-large city, City of Everett.
Good morning, Carlo Di Maria.
At-large city, City of Newton.
Ruth Ann Fuller and David Kosis.
At-large town, Town of Arlington.
Good morning. John Alessi representing Select Board Chair Eric Helmuth and the Town of Arlington.
At-large town, Town of Brookline.
Good morning, Erin Chute, representing Select Board Chair Bernard Green, Town of Brookline.
Inner Core Committee, City of Somerville.
Katiana Ballantyne, the Mayor of Somerville.
Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Jim Snyder Grant, Chair of the Acton Select Board.
Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham.
Dennis Giambetti, Representative Mayor Charles Ziski in the Metro West region.
North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Good morning, Erin Schaefer, representing Mayor Cahill, North Shore Task Force, and the City of Beverly.
North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington. South Shore Coalition, Town of Hull.
Chris Diorio, representing Greg Gray, Select Board Chair for the South Shore Coalition.
Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham.
Rachel Benson, representing Joe Botash for SWAP.
Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood, Neponset River Regional Chamber.
Good morning, Tom O'Rourke from the Town of Norwood, representing the Trigg Subregion.
Inter ex officio members, Federal Highway Administration.
Joy Singh, FHWA Massachusetts Division Administrator.
And Federal Transit Administration.
Hi, Michelle Muellinger, participating virtually from the Federal Transit Administration.
Great, that calls the roll. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now that I've established what seat I'm in, we will go into my first chair's report. I'm going to keep this rather brief. I just want to talk about the administration's priorities, but also my priorities for the Department of Transportation and also working with our partners at Massport and our partners at the MBTA, but even more importantly, our partners in the communities with our elected officials and the many constituents you represent. We are in a very, very difficult time, and I've worked with many of you for a very, very long time. We know that transportation and transit has continued to be an issue that has plagued the Commonwealth, but we are absolutely at a crisis point. And it isn't just about the financials. I think that that is something we talk a lot about, which I think, quite honestly, makes it much more simplistic than I think it actually is. The concerns are not just the MBTA, the concerns are how we are actually connecting the communities throughout the entire Commonwealth. We have 351 municipalities. They are not all served by the MBTA. They are served by regional transit authorities if they're lucky, and then many others aren't served at all. And I've said this many, many times, transportation is a lifeline. It is the way that people can choose to have better options. They can have better lives. They can put their kids in the schools they want to put them in. They can have a job that puts them on a career path or gets them at a salary that they want to be. But transportation and housing continue to be the biggest issues keeping people from having that better life. It used to be a discussion probably, I don't know, even 10, 15 years ago where people would say, okay, the congestion is horrible in 495. I'll move to 128. Or it's horrible in 128. Maybe, well, no one would choose Route 1. That's probably not a great example. But you might choose 93. But now that's not the choices people are making. It's not the choices businesses are making. They're leaving. They're leaving the Commonwealth. We are losing residents every single week. This Commonwealth has become so wildly unaffordable for most people. It really has. We all know that. The cost of housing has been obscene for a very, very long time. We don't have enough housing, and the housing we have is not sufficiently connected to transit. The gateway cities and other communities outside of the inner core have been doing an unbelievable job, whether you're talking small businesses, full spectrum of housing, so people have the options to live in communities where they have the resources and can afford a house and they can put their kids in public schools. The problem is, then where in the world are they going to work? Then you have people who are in the inner core communities, but what if they want to work outside of there and get a different, better job or go to a different university? They're stuck. You just can't make those connections. For me and for this administration, the connection between housing, economic development, and transportation is essential. We are going to be putting together a competitiveness cabinet. So it would be myself, Secretary Howe for Economic Development, and Secretary Augustus for Housing. Because we know if we are not in lockstep, we are not in partnership, we cannot fix any of these problems. We just can't. There is no one of us, no one secretariat that can do this. This is what keeps me up at night. I live outside the inner core. I live in Devens, which is an unbelievable community. I love it. And I'm able to put my daughter in a wonderful school that she can bike to, she can walk to. But that's actually not why my wife and I chose to live there. It was the only place we could afford to live. I'm a public servant. She works for a nonprofit fighting for better transit. We couldn't afford to live anywhere close to where we were working. So then we looked outside of there, looking at central and western Massachusetts, and realized not only could we afford a home, we didn't ever have to leave the community. Because it's walkable, it's bikeable, we know our neighbors, we can go to the grocery store without having to get in the car. But then the problem arose when I moved to a different job. Now I have to make that commute every single day. I'm within 1.5 miles of 2 commuter rail stations, 2 of them, that don't operate at the frequency I need to actually get to my job. They're also $400 a month. That's insane. I can't afford that. And I'm lucky that I can come to work at any time I want. If I'm late, no one is going to dock the pay of the secretary. But that is a privilege that not many people have. They just don't. They show up late to work. At best, they're losing money. At worst, they just lost their job. That's the stuff that keeps me up at night. My commute can be between 45 minutes and 2.5 hours. That is the range because I'm on Route 2 and then I take the Pike. It is just an indeterminate amount of time. And once again, I have the privilege of actually having a car to make that trip. And that is a privilege. We talk about congestion. It is brutal. This morning, I have no idea what weird situation occurred, but it added an additional 40 minutes to my commute despite the fact I left at the exact same time I did yesterday. That's inexplicable. But you know what? I didn't get into a car accident on my way here, which is also a privilege because the amount of people that are getting injured on our roadways is continuing to grow every single year. We had the vulnerable users law. Thank goodness we finally have that. But it doesn't mean people are going to do it. Doesn't mean people are going to give that space. And every single day our pedestrians are getting hit, our cyclists are getting hit because drivers are frustrated. They're angry. They're trying to make up time by doing 70 and a 45. They're trying to make up time by passing in places that, quite honestly, I'm not even sure it's an actual roadway. It is putting the lives of all of our residents in danger. All of this is connected back to transportation, housing, and economic development. I am going to keep hammering on this because if we don't get this fixed, we don't get aggressive on this, whether you are a mayor, whether you're in a position like myself, whether you're a governor, if we do not get aggressive and we stop talking about all the other solutions that we've tried hundreds of times, clearly if they worked, it would be fixed. It's not. We have to be bold. We have to be different. And this is also playing into all of our climate challenges. We know that we are not a resilient Commonwealth. We're just not ready for this. We're not ready for sea level rise. We sure aren't ready for the air quality issues. As I'm looking over at Mayor Ballantyne, we have created such an unhealthy situation for so many of our communities. We have to fix this. We have to be better. And it's not just putting in EV chargers. It's not expecting people to pay $70,000 for an electric vehicle that they're still going to be stuck in traffic in. That's not enough. It's us putting more electric buses out there, electrifying our commuter rail, electrifying our rail lines, but even beyond that, giving people options so you don't even have to get into a car. I know that in this role, you have to say a lot of these things. You have to let people know that you're taking your job very, very seriously and that you have these goals. I am somehow magically going to come up with these solutions. I'm not. I'm just not. I've been a planner for almost 20 years. I know how hard this is for my staff, for my teams, for my communities, for every single federal partner. It is so hard. But the thing my team and I talk about every day is this. We have such a limited amount of time. How in the world I even got into this seat, I really don't understand. I'm going to make the absolute best of it with what time I have here, and my staff is going to do the exact same thing because we are focused on doing our jobs, not keeping them. And that is what I'm asking for every single one of our partners. We have to be bold. We've run out of time. We just have. Those of us who have kids, those of us who know children, those of us who care about the next generation, you know, the time is now. We just run out of everything else. So now we're going to do new solutions. And it's going to take organizations and leaders like you to make this happen. But the MPO needs support, we need partners, and we need your help in building housing. We need your help in pushing for additional funding, not just for transportation, but for housing. We need you to meet us where we are. So as I'm looking around at all the mayors, give me housing. Give me housing. Give me a full spectrum of housing. I guarantee I will connect it. I promise you that. I will connect these regions, but you gotta help me on that end. So with that, we will get into this, but I just want to say I'm very excited to be at this first MPO meeting. I'm very excited to see so many of your faces that I've known for such a long time. It feels like a family reunion. And I just want to say I have the utmost faith in everyone in this room that we're going to make this better, because you're here. And sometimes the hardest part is showing up, because I know everyone is very busy, but knowing that you took this time to be here, that's important, and it sends a message to all the residents of all 351 municipalities that we are going to go to work, and you're going to have an administration that is going to partner with you to meet all of the things that we want to do, independent of what seats we're sitting in. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve Wolfel to move us through the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Secretary. So the next item on the agenda we have is members' items, and what we want to do with that is we have a number of mayors, as the Secretary alluded to, so we want to welcome them, and each one of them wants to say a few words. So Mayor Wu, could you start us off?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm trying not to cry. I hope someone recorded the Secretary's talk. I'm going to just keep it and watch it whenever I need inspiration. It means so much to have your leadership and to finally feel like there is urgency and action coming from the state level as a partner, and we will be here however you need us in the city of Boston on all fronts. So very, very thankful to you. I'm thankful to everyone here at this table. I'm just so honored to sit alongside each of you and to be part of this coalition together. I give special love to my fellow mayors, of course, Mayor Ballantyne, Mayor Fuller, Mayor DiMaria, and Select Board Chair Snyder Grand. Thank you for what you do, and to all of our partners at the city, state, and federal level. I would venture that even though this organization has been around for a little bit of time, and this mechanism and this way of bringing people together regionally has been here, this is the moment where we are facing higher stakes than ever before for our actions and our decisions at this table. I won't add too much more to what the Secretary said in terms of the urgency, except that everywhere I go in Boston, no matter what walk of life, no matter what job, no matter what role, as a parent, as a young person trying to get to an internship, as a major employer, transportation is stressing out every single person, and it's really costing us. And so when we think about the dollars and the big numbers and all of the, to get to the state of good repair or to do all of the projects that we are wishing for and hoping for in our communities, what we have to hold up against that is what is the cost of doing nothing or delaying. And that is what our residents and commuters are bearing every single day already. So I wanted to come here to just thank you for everyone on this committee for the work that has already been happening. There have been a number of projects that the City of Boston is continuing to benefit from. The MPO and the funding that we have been able to access through this has helped us get a couple major projects to the finish line. Phase 2 of our Tremont and Columbus project, Boylston Street project in the Fenway, and especially Rutherford Ave. I'm looking at Mayor DiMaria here. We know that this is a critical connection point through Sullivan Square over to our surrounding communities, and in Everett, in Somerville. This is a redesign that's going to help connect not only our Charlestown residents to the Orange Line and high-quality transit connections, but all of the amenities and the family members and everything that we know depends on this. I also want to just lift up and highlight this group's support for the Blue Bike system. We've had some major advances even in the last couple of weeks, so very excited to keep growing and seeing the success of this regional partnership in many, many ways. And the last thing I'll say, MPO, the word planning is in our name, but again, I just want to emphasize that for me, planning is only so good as it leads to action, and I think that's what our residents and our commuters and all our families are counting on us for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. Next up is Mayor DiMaria.
I was really hoping you'd go that way. Carlo DiMaria, Mayor of Everett. I want to thank whoever set the seat assignments up, because I really feel at home here with Dennis Giambetti and John Romano to my left and right. I feel very comfortable as a son of Italian immigrants. I want to thank the MAPC for all that they've done for the city of Everett. I've been mayor now for 17 years. Can't believe that, but it has flown by. And we have so much more work to do. Again, thank you for Ferry and Elm, Beecham Street, and I know you just accepted a new project for Vine and Third, which will connect our residents to the commuter rail stop in Chelsea. I have about 6,000 units of housing on the permit right now. We have about probably 300-400 acres of land that, as power plants become a thing of the past and Exxon fields become a thing of the past, the National Grid site, the Sprague site, as you know, we were inundated with environmental sites in the city of Everett, and no one ever helped us. If we didn't bring the casino to the city of Everett, Monsanto would still sit there empty, 50 acres of blighted property, but now generates taxes, restore access to the waterfront, water taxi shuttle service jobs, union jobs, construction jobs. Unfortunately, we weren't successful last night with removing the power plant from the DPA site, but I'm not going to give up on that, because that's going to have to get redeveloped, and I can't bear to look at that site every day for the next 50 years, sitting on our doorsteps, empty and blighted. I will continue to build housing. I was hoping to use that site to leverage some developers to bring the Silver Line, the commuter rail stops, the center lane bus lanes connecting to Rutherford Ave. Can you imagine I was the first mayor to put bus lanes in the Commonwealth? I mean, me, the first mayor to put bus lanes in the Commonwealth, right? I mean, thank you, Julia Wallace from ITDP at the time. Yes, MAPC now? Yeah, I have to get better with all those. I have Jay Monty behind me, who's a great transportation planner. But I have a meeting with you next week. I'm excited because I hear great things about you. And just listening to you, I'm actually jealous you live in Devons, because I love Red Tail. It's one of my favorite golf courses. So maybe I can come, and our next meeting can be at your house, maybe? Do you play golf? All right, excellent. But, I live 3 miles away from here, and it took me 40 minutes to get here. I have train tracks that go through the city of Everett. My residents are black and brown, majority of my residents. We're an EJ community. We have train tracks that go through that blow out it's not electrified, it's run on diesel, right? And just blowing those contaminants out, and we can't even get on the train. It just drives right through us. Isn't that sad? I think that's sad. We used to have the Orange Line and someone straightened out the tracks and took it away from us. We used to have an on-grade trolley car system in the city of Everett. And then we just went total in a different way. So I'm trying to reverse that. So I, again, appreciate everybody on MAPC, what you do. This is great to see all these faces, you know. I really don't get out much. I try to, when I do, I get in trouble, so I just stay in Everett, you know. So I just stay there. I'm comfortable in that 3.5 square mile city, you know. My wife's like, do you know how to get anywhere else? And I'm like, no, I really don't. But yeah, I want to continue to build more housing units. We have the Exxon site John Davis just purchased, 100 acres. You know, I don't want to see last mile delivery. You know, I'm looking for life sciences, biotech, green tech. You know, we have an MSBA application for a new high school. We're advancing that application forward with building a vocational program. I'm hoping I can tie that vocational school into some new sector that's coming into the city of Everett. But transit, if we have transit, if we can connect Everett to the city of Boston on a one-seat ride, is that the term, right? One-seat ride, we can really explode that whole waterfront. I mean, truly. Can be something. It's something that I think the governor and yourself and all. I mean, Ed Augustus called me and asked me how I was doing it, building all that housing, and I said it was easy. We had, you know, we were using that commuter rail stop in Chelsea, and that was impetus to keep building housing, but now it's too far away from where we want to build more of it. So, anyways, taking up way too much time. Thank you all very much for allowing me to speak, and yeah. So I look forward to our meeting next week. I kind of give you a preview, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jerry Maria. And next we'll have Mayor Ballantine go.
Good morning. Thank you. Welcome. So yes to everything that you said. Yes, this is a different time. It's a crisis point. I was really happy to hear that, Madam Secretary, you highlighted the point that it's not just only about dollars. And thank you, Mayor Wu, for mentioning planning. Yeah, it's planning. It's how we intersect. So if the big takeaway for people here is it would be regionalism. You know, I support it. We are a we. We are not an us and them. We're all interconnected, and anything that we can do here in Somerville to help push along that expansion of rail, whether it's out to the suburbs, whether it's out to Everett, adding those trains, I am there for, because it helps us all. It helps us all. And talking about transportation being the lifeline to opportunity, hadn't quite heard it positioned that way, but absolutely, it is. You know, I moved to the greater Boston area living in Chelsea. I worked in Lynn. I rode my bike or took public transit there. Then I had to go to Brockton, and it took me 2.5 hours to figure out in Mansfield how to get there, which it didn't work out. Eventually, I got closer to Boston. So, you know, I'm committed to public transit, to the protected bike lanes, dedicated bus lanes, and that it's safe for all users to get around. We all have to share the space. COVID allowed us to think about public space in a different way. Certainly in Somerville, it's like, oh, you mean our narrow 4 square miles says pedestrians can walk? We did the shared ways. So how do you get from point A to point B without getting on a bus or in a car to go to a grocery store? So it's like the parklets and the restaurants, the outside dining, and everybody enjoyed it. And if we had tried that before COVID, we have been talking about it for 10 years, but all of a sudden now people say, well, why why can't, what's happening? Are you stopping it? I said, no, it's actually the small businesses. Do they have workforce who can actually work in that expanded footprint of not only the indoor space, but the outdoor space? I understand that we have great challenges and regional challenges, and housing affordability, transit reliability, and public health are, at the paramount and the intersection. So the MPO is a crucial space for that regional dialogue and that coordination. I've certainly directed my staff to work and to focus on the regional support. I remember coming into these meetings actually about 20 years ago as an activist on the Green Line extension, and I'm happy to lend my activist role in other regions. So thank you for your partnership, for your words, and the focus of the MPO. I think it's really important for us to have systems thinking, strategic thinking, the intersections that we all know about, but the planning, I like that. The planning is in our words, so let's really have an authentic conversation, and you've made the space for that. Land use and transportation are two sides of the same coin, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish here together. Thank you.
Mayor Valentine, Mayor Fuller.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
There we go. Secretary, your experience and knowledge, vision, values, and most of all, your empathy at this crisis point is deeply appreciated. It's a blessing to all of us to have you in the leadership position. Probably the most divisive issue in Newton right now is about housing. Last night, the City Council again met trying to comply with the MBTA Communities Act, and we will. But the link to transportation is so tight. Economic development, climate change, housing, transportation, equity, quality of life. You can't disassociate any of those. To your right hand literally is the amazing leader, Tegan. I want to say thank you to the MPO staff led by Tegan. You're in great shape. So you're coming into a position of strength with your staff. And I do want to say thank you to Mark Dreisen and the MAPC as well. They have been enormously helpful to us in our planning and helping us think through vision and occasionally even the politics of it all. So to MAPC. We have a lot to be grateful for. There's an amazing project on Needham Street that is MassDOT work. You've been very supportive of Blue Bikes, as Mayor Wu had said, of our rideshare program, Newton in Motion. We're at the fabulous stage with Newton Corner. For those of you taking the Mass Pike in, you know when you get stopped in Newton because you can't, there are all these cars backed up trying to get off the Mass Pike at, sorry, I still call it exit 17. I don't know the new number yet. But I want to lift up one last thing. The contentious issue in front of our city council right now is related to commuter rail. We are blessed with the 3 commuter rail stations. We are cursed because we're the only 3 commuter rail stations that have single-sided platforms, so we have no frequency, and unfortunately there are many other stations like us. They all have more than 50 steps to get up or down to the platform, so but unfortunately we share that with others. Funding is there. We've got great support from Jake Auchincloss in Congress and working with the feds to get funding, but this is something where we're totally dependent on the state to help us. And I'll take your words. I hope the time is now to unlock the full economic potential, the housing potential, and the quality of life on the entire north side of Newton is dependent on help on those 3 commuter rail stations. We will be your partners. Josh Ostroff, you can count on him. David Kozis, you can count on him. Our planners, Barney Heath, our city council's behind it, our state reps are behind it, and you can certainly count on me. Thank you for being here, Secretary. We're thrilled to have you on board.
Thank you, Mayor Fuller. So we want to thank all the mayors for being here. And before we move to the next agenda, I'd like to ask Administrator Singh to say a few words.
And I'll be brief. Federal Highway is so very excited to work alongside Secretary Tibbetts-Nutt in execution of the transportation program. And we're very excited about a lot of what we see happening through MassDOT with transportation here. Nationwide, Massachusetts is known for the safety program, for making data-informed safety decisions, for really considering the human factors in transportation, and for executing projects that are consistent with the needs of the citizens. We are learning to do business at Federal Highway in a way that we have never had to do business before because of the bipartisan infrastructure law. Now, not just the state, but counties, cities, municipalities have access to federal dollars. This is historic for us. You know, we are experts at knowing how to deliver the federal aid program through the state. So now learning how to do that through the cities has been so exciting and such a fantastic opportunity for us to really even connect more personally with the citizens here. If you are not aware, I'm pleased to share with you that the state of Massachusetts has won, and all of these grant programs are competitive, has won among the greatest number of grants of any state in the country. We now have 35 grant recipients here in Massachusetts, 32 unique recipients. So that means 32 different cities, municipalities, or counties have been successful in the competitive grant application process. And that's also considering our legacy grant programs, the ones that have been around a few years. So this is very exciting because this is new federal dollars flooding into the state, new opportunities to improve everything from fisheries and aqueducts to roads and bridges, new ways to serve and connect with the community. And it really has been a joy and a delight thus far to get to work with Secretary Tibbetts-Nutt and to really reinforce the idea that whether you are working on the state side, the federal side, representing a county, a city, or a smaller entity, we all have the same goal. We all want to see great transportation projects executed. We want to see our citizens served. We want to see the great people of Massachusetts benefit from all the programs. And it really is a pleasure to get to work together to make that happen. I will share very briefly, many of you know from when I was here in June that I am a transplant to Massachusetts, never lived in Massachusetts, never even visited Massachusetts before I moved here in March. And almost every day, my husband and I look at each other and said, it just feels like home. It just feels like the place that we're supposed to be. There are many cities with great restaurants and landmarks, but we have been few places with greater citizens than we've met here. And so we are on a campaign to recruit our family members to move here. We have 2 adult-ish children that we're trying to heavily influence to move here. And transportation has never been more personal to me than it is in this moment. Trying to convince my daughter, I said, hey, she's been living in Amsterdam for the last 4 years. Like, Amsterdam's great, but have you looked at Massachusetts? It's basically the same. And the first question she asked is, how are the bike facilities? She doesn't drive a car. She gets everywhere in Europe by bike or foot or transit. And, so I feel very personally connected right now to the progress that we are making in Massachusetts in connecting communities, connecting people, and really helping to retain the great citizens of the state.
Thank you, Administrator. All right, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is public comments. Are there any members of the public that have signed up to speak to the MPO today? Anyone online? All right, I don't see any. So with that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item 5. Welcome by the Executive Director and introduction to the role of the Boston MPO and overview MPO investment process. Tegan.
Thanks for waiting for me to get to the podium. All right, could we go to the next? Oh, we do have a clicker. Excellent. Let me see. Great. So hello, everyone. I am Tegan Tyke. I'm the Executive Director of the staff to the Boston Region MPO. And I'd like to extend my welcome, especially to those of you who have been at the table today for the first time, and those of you who have been willing to share your remarks and talk about the importance of this board and the work that it does. But I also want to thank those of you who keep coming back to this table, whether in person or virtually, over and over again, over many years, to do the very hard work that this board does. So thank you and welcome back, and I very much appreciate your service in support of what this board does. Today is our inaugural annual meeting, so this has been very exciting. This is a meeting that's now called for in the MPO's newly established operations plan, and it's a space that we meet about within a month after the elections of new board members, and it's also where we will vote for the vice chair role, as well as approve a slate of committee members for the year. But because of all of this, and because it's a time when more folks are at the table and we have new members, I think it's a very important moment to reaffirm what it is that this MPO is and what it does and the policy context in which you're working. So you may know some of this already, and we will make it very brief and concise, but I do think it's very important to just spend about 10 minutes talking about what this board does so we're all on the same page. And I'll pass then to my colleague Ethan LaPointe to talk more about the transportation investment program that this board approves. So, the Boston Region MPO, hopefully this is a pretty straightforward one, is shown in the shaded area of this slide. It's made up of 97 cities and towns and has population of about 3.4 million. There are a wide mix of municipalities in the region. They range from urban centers to rural communities, so we have quite a diversity in that sense. It extends from Boston north towards Ipswich, south towards Marshfield, and west roughly along Interstate 495. The region is also home to a growing share of environmental justice populations. Those are people in communities who have long been overburdened by the negative impacts of our transportation system. So just to highlight right now, in our region, roughly 1 in 3 residents, that's over 1 million, identify as a person of color, and roughly 1 in 5 classify as low income. So what is the MPO? It is a body that is governed by a board of 22 members. Many of you are sitting here today. Some are permanent and some are elected. It does vary. And you all together make decisions on how to allocate federal funding to transportation projects. So to start, of the 22 seats, 14, or the majority, are held by cities and towns. So that's, I think, an important thing to highlight. So to start, the City of Boston has 2 seats, and those are permanent seats per the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. And then we move on to the elected municipal seats. Those include 4 at-large city or towns, 2 cities, 2 towns, and the current members are Everett, Arlington, Newton, and Brookline. And then each sub-region within the region elects a representative, and those are currently Beverly, Burlington, Acton, Framingham, Rentham, Norwood, Hull, and Somerville. So thank you all for being here. In addition to the municipal representatives, the remaining very important 8 seats are held by a combination of state and regional agencies. So of course we have 3 seats for Mass DOT, one being the Secretary's seat and permanent chair per the MOU for this board. There's also a seat for MBTA, seat for Massport, and then a seat for our regional planning agency, MAPC, which also holds currently the vice chair role on this board, which you'll be voting on again today. Then there is also a seat for the MBTA Advisory Council and the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. So together, you really are a mix of local, regional, and state agencies, and you're responsible for cooperatively making decisions, wait for it, on the allocation of over $6 billion of federal funding in over a 5-year period in the Boston region. So the projects that you all are discussing and approving include projects that are prioritized by transit agencies, representing about $4 billion of those dollars over the 5-year period, projects that are selected and prioritized by Mass DOT, and that covers about $1.6 billion of the federal dollars there. And then also there's about $700 million of projects over the 5-year period that are discussed and selected by this board, this body itself. And it's important to highlight that most federal dollars require a local match, and in the Massachusetts context, that match typically comes from state sources. So to manage all of this, the board and the work of the MPO is supported and carried out by a staff of about 60 full-time transportation professionals. A number of us are in the room today. We include planners, data analysts, data scientists and modelers, communication and engagement experts, and administrative staff. It's quite a range. And we as the staff, also known as CTPS, work to leverage our relationship with our sister regional planning agency, MAPC, to ensure that we are in fact being comprehensive in our transportation planning work, considering the relationship between land use, housing, and transportation, which has been a major topic today, and I'm thrilled to hear that. But to better understand the Boston Region MPO and the work that we do together, I think it's important to just spend a minute to discuss the context from which MPOs emerged, both locally and nationally. So MPOs are established through federal legislation, which came about largely in response to challenges seen in the 1950s, 60s era of highway building across the country. Looking back to 1948, when Massachusetts developed its first highway master plan, the federal government was funding the large percentage of the road building costs, and the planning was being carried out by the state at the time in a way that was more focused on technical issues and less focused on the kinds of land use and social considerations that we talk about today. So that at the time was problematic. It was the norm across the country, and it led to highway designs that wiped out urban fabrics and longstanding communities to accommodate roads and interchanges that went through those communities and not to the communities. And in Massachusetts, projects like the Inner Belt and the Southwest Expressway, shown here, would have displaced thousands and created massive barriers between those communities and their access to other resources and opportunities. And tragically, as we know, much of that destruction did occur in Massachusetts before the process was halted. So that version of highway building and the kind of the reassessment of the impacts on communities did not happen in a vacuum. In Massachusetts in particular, but also across the country, community advocates were rising up against in protest in an era that was sometimes called the highway revolts. And in Massachusetts, the combined voices of a coalition of city planners, community activists, universities, and local politicians influenced the eventual decision by Governor Francis Sargent to put a moratorium on the destruction of the communities and the building of the highways in Massachusetts in favor of carrying out a comprehensive multimodal study of the region's transportation needs. Back to the national level, amidst the protest and controversy that was going on, and about a decade before that Massachusetts moratorium, in 1962, the Federal Aid Highway Act was passed, and that act mandated that projects funded through federal funds, highway projects funded through federal aid, could not be approved in urban areas unless they were based on a continuing, comprehensive transportation planning process that has been carried on cooperatively by states and local communities, and that's really important to recognize. So, in the 60s, to meet that requirement, we saw a lot of ad hoc committees, planning committees that sort of popped up and tried to represent that cooperative element of the required process. And those became the basis of MPOs, like what we are today, once they became formally established. And they were formally established in 1973. The Federal Aid Highway Act gave metropolitan planning organizations, again, this body here today, the power to authorize the use of federal transportation funds. So, MPOs, this body, as well as other MPOs across the country, are designated by an agreement between the governor and local governments representing at least 75% of the affected population to facilitate the collaboration of governments and local and community stakeholders in the planning process, and importantly, layered on with a mandate and a commitment to considering equity and vulnerable populations in that planning process. And particularly in urbanized areas, MPOs carry out significant planning and programming of highways and transit projects as a prerequisite to getting federal funding for those projects. So in essence, MPOs are a type of gatekeeper to those federal funds coming into the region. But because of the nature by which MPOs are formed, I want to really highlight MPOs can look very, very different even within a state, but also across the country. So as a collaborative decision-making forum about planning and about federal funding, MPOs, you all, play a really important role and are important partners in meeting the Commonwealth's and the Healy-Driscoll administration's climate goals. We know that we can't build out of congestion. We've been saying that already today plenty, and that transportation is a crucial sector that we need to address in order to meet our climate goals. So the Boston region's established long-range vision, the MPO's vision, is part of the planning framework that we have to get there. Just to highlight in essence, this Boston region MPO envisions a transportation system that's sustainable, healthy, livable, and economically vibrant region. And to achieve this, the system has to be safe, it has to be resilient, it has to incorporate emerging technologies, and it really has to be a system that provides real, valid transportation options to meet individuals' needs on any particular day and stage of life, recognizing the diversity of those needs. So, last thing I wanted to highlight is that in order to meet the evolving needs of the region, the staff to the MPO, which I oversee, we have also been evolving and adapting to help do the work of the MPO and meet those needs. So I want to just highlight a couple of things that we've been really focusing on and advancing in the last couple of years as an agency, as staff supporting you. First, we've been expanding the MPO's climate resilience program over the last few years to increase our capacity as a staff to respond to the mounting pressures of climate change and natural hazards on our transportation system. So as part of this, a highlight this year is that we're allocating some very specific resources towards building up our relationships with environmental stakeholders, both local and regional, in our region, so that we can better incorporate local needs into the regional planning process. We've also grown our communications and engagement capacity significantly by establishing a discrete team and by hiring additional staff to support those efforts. And we've aligned it incredibly closely with the Transportation Equity Program to be able to better conduct meaningful public engagement that focuses on those under-prioritized vulnerable populations that are underserved now by our system. We have also shifted from a structure with modally focused sort of teams to really thinking about transportation in a truly multimodal way. And we've also established an associated investment program that really works towards making a comprehensive set of our transportation options for our region. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight that we have recently rebuilt our travel demand model, which, if you have heard of it, is the most complex and robust tool that we as staff currently maintain to support our partners and the public in general in our transportation planning and design. The new tool is built to be robust within the uncertainty that we face as a region. And it has also been built to be a resource that can be shared and built upon with the engagement of the broader expertise of the modeling community. So we're very excited to advance our work in that area. And I thank you for your time listening to me about the MPO. And with that introduction, I'm going to pass it to my colleague Ethan Lapointe, who's the MPO's manager of the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. And that's the MPO's rolling 5-year investment plan, including federal dollars spent in the region. So Ethan.
Thank you, Tegan, and thank you everybody for being here this morning. My name is Ethan Lapointe. I am the manager of the Transportation Improvement Program for the Boston Region MPO. As part of this presentation, I want to begin, as I often do, with a summary of what I will be discussing. So first off, really the bottom line that I would like many of the attendees today here to get is that in order to accomplish and to act upon much of the planning activities that the Boston Region MPO conducts, we need projects, not only to realize the region's goals, but to also make sure that the kinds of studies and designs that you are performing can actually be realized to suit your community needs. Specifically, with regard to previous discussions around multimodal projects, we're also looking to try to champion and advance projects that specifically address the needs such as climate change, transportation equity, and connections to affordable housing that are needed across the 97 cities and towns of this regional community. To kind of take a step back and really explain what the Transportation Improvement Program is, the TIP is one of 13 regionally programmed 5-year plans within the Commonwealth. The Boston region's TIP represents about 43% of all of this funding, given it represents about 43% of the Commonwealth's population, and includes, as mentioned previously, $3.98 billion of transit projects for the MBTA, and also from our regional transit authority partners, the Metro West Regional Transit Authority and Cape Ann Transportation Authorities, $65 million of capital investment. For MassDOT highways projects, these highway projects referring to projects that are statewide priorities that fall within the communities of this region, there's about $1.6 billion of funding. And critically, there is approximately $700 million of funding set aside to address regional, municipally prioritized projects, namely, and to speak candidly, the projects that your communities want the most to see delivered, in partnership, of course, with our state and federal partners. The reason why that we are advancing more of these projects and trying to act quickly is the bipartisan infrastructure law. The passage of the federal bipartisan infrastructure law in federal fiscal year 2021 has dramatically improved our ability to advance and act upon more regional and local priority projects. The State Transportation Improvement Program and all regional transportation improvement programs are updated and revised annually, meaning that in only 3 years we have seen regional funding for projects increase from $105 million within the Boston region up to $160 million, a nearly 50% increase. This has been a rapid growth in a very short period of time, and in order to act upon that, we need aggressive project delivery strategies and to ensure that there are enough projects waiting in the wings, ready to go, not only to capitalize on this formula funding, but also the unprecedented level of federal discretionary grants as well. Some of the things that the MPO has supported to date and will look to continue to support have been major infrastructure investments in regionally significant projects. As shown on screen here, each project illustrated is indicative of a project currently funded by the Boston Region MPO and Massachusetts Department of Transportation. Specifically, the Boston Region MPO is supporting investments in the Rutherford Avenue project in Charlestown to improve connectivity between the northern cities of this region, and also in McGrath Highway in Somerville as well. Moreover, each project that the Boston Region MPO is currently advancing and will continue to try to support tries to incorporate complete streets principles, also in tandem with MassDOT's own design guidelines, and advance climate resiliency across all projects to ensure that the investments that we are making today will suit the populations that utilize them for the duration of their entire useful lives. In addition, we are not only supporting urban and regional priority projects, but we're also looking to advance projects in the more outlying parts of our region, namely focusing on the vulnerable users that exist in all of our communities to drive a shift away from single occupancy vehicles and support vulnerable user safety to make multimodal transportation options more viable. On screen in the bottom left, we have a photo of the Cochituate Rail Trail in Natick, which the MPO continues to support through its investments, and also the Cherry Street intersection with the MBTA and CSX freight grade crossing in Ashland. While we have continued to support these projects and solicit projects with each development cycle of the TIP, we are hoping that the launch of the federal fiscal years 2025 to 29 program, namely the one that we are currently launching with this cycle, that we can act upon new priorities under the bipartisan infrastructure law. This includes, with this new cycle, expanded investments in transit, not only for the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, but also for our regional transportation authorities through the Transit Transformation Program. To date, the MPO has not only supported investments in things like the Green Line Extension, Lynn Station commuter rail, and also both Jackson Square Station and Columbus Avenue in Boston, but also may continue to do so through this dedicated set-aside for continued and expanded transit investments. As mentioned previously as well, the MPO will not only continue to support the expansion of the Blue Bike system as it has traditionally done and work to act upon and re-envision it as we have invested in the electrification of the Blue Bike system, but also support that sustainability. As the Blue Bikes network moves into its first decade of operation, there's a need to make sure that this system can be continued to be supportive through capital replacement and repair, which we are continuing to do so. Moreover, to make sure that the barriers to entry can be reduced for projects that are looking to enter construction, the Boston Region MPO has committed funding for municipal project design in federal fiscal year 2025 to allow more projects to enter the project pipeline to capitalize on that elevated funding. Moreover, because of all of these new different project types and the fact that the Boston Region MPO is continuing to support project design, there is the need for further coordination, not only between members of this board, but also the municipalities that these projects are coming from. Generally, with each development of the TIP cycle each year, it really starts in earnest at this time, November and December. For me, it is one of the most exciting parts of the year because it entails project solicitation with that new federal fiscal year. As of November 1st and continuing through the end of the calendar year, applications are open now for a variety of MPO investment programs, namely to say communities right now are trying to seek money for their projects. All of the projects that may eventually seek funding, even if they are not yet ready to do so, are also included in what is referred to as the TIP universe of projects. Really, it is a running list of different municipal priorities to help MPO staff and the board and members of the public convey where the regional needs are emerging or currently exist. After the application period closes on December 31st, MPO staff then commence project scoring to determine the extent to which the projects that municipalities applied for are consistent with MPO visions and goals. And in February, we then take the findings of that evaluation exercise to discuss these scores and their associated projects with MPO board members to dive deeper to figure out what the future of the transportation network may be. In addition to those new projects, there's also the need to support currently programmed projects that have already been selected for funding. The readiness of these projects is also discussed with board members to make sure they are on time, on track, and on budget for the duration of all 5 years of the capital plan. Let's hope I didn't jump that. I did jump that. Sorry, let me go back real quick. Once project readiness updates are in hand, and there's also an awareness of what the funding picture looks like for the capital plan, there's then the next step of programming scenario development and selection. A scenario in this case refers to a bundle of projects that may be opted for programming within a given TIP development cycle, which then culminates in the release of the final federal fiscal years 25 to 29 transportation improvement program, which this board, after the completion of a public comment period, would be responsible for voting on for its final endorsement, namely to say that those projects that were applied for and then selected as of October 1st, 2024, would be good to go for their funding. As this activity continues for the duration of each TIP development cycle, there's also the need to support currently programmed projects and also to strategize through a new body, the TIP Process Readiness and Engagement Committee, where members of this board and also members of the public are invited to engage further for a deep dive on specific projects and challenges to help really create a long-term plan to address transportation needs for the Boston region. So to go back to a summary again for the bottom line here, we are looking for municipalities to work with the Boston Region MPO staff and really to actualize upon the visions and goals that we have set forth to apply for projects through the TIP. We cannot make progress towards these goals without projects to actually deliver upon that. Specifically, if any municipalities are interested in applying for TIP projects, please leverage MPO staff to do so either through one-on-one meetings to discuss both regional or individual community needs and project ideas. And also, as mentioned previously, to engage with this new TIP Process Readiness and Engagement Committee to learn more about those transportation challenges and individual projects. And with that, that is all I had.
All right, thank you, Tegan and Ethan. We have some time for a few minutes for questions, but I do want to let people know that we've already heard a lot this morning, so I'm going to move the break up, the 15-minute break up till after this agenda item, and then we'll come back after the break and take up agenda item 6. So do members have questions for either Tegan or Ethan? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
The Rutherford Ave project, is it designed, completely designed? I haven't seen it. I just.
Want to answer? All right.
Sure. I think, as you know, after talking with the secretary a year plus now ago, it was a request to redesign it, take a fresh look at the design. So right now we're working on those designs, the city, and getting to a point where we need to broaden that conversation with our neighbors and MassDOT and MBTA.
Jim, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, so as I think you know, we were approached by the secretary a couple years ago to consider redesigning the current 25% design of the project. And we are in the process of doing that right now. And we're working on that internally with the city, internally to the city of Boston. And we're at a point where we need to, broaden the conversation with MassDOT, MBTA, Everett, of course, all of our neighbors, Somerville, et cetera. So
that's going to happen soon.
Currently being worked on. But to answer your question, is it finished design? No.
Okay, but the underpass is being shut down January 1st?
For maintenance, correct.
For 6 months?
I think that sounds right, yeah.
That's going to be horrific for the city of Everett. That was done before, and we had actually, I think, a fatality on Broadway, because it's going to cause a serious amount of traffic in our city. So we should get together with our police departments, transportation departments, city leaders on what's going to be, if they're going to be details pulling people through that rotary. It really causes a real big problem for the city of Everett.
Absolutely.
So I have your word that you will connect
Yes.
on that?
Yep.
Before January 1st?
Yes.
Before you shut it down?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on what Tegan and Ethan presented?
I'll just add that at next week's MPO meeting, we will also be, Yasha will be returning to speak a bit more to the Rutherford project. So hear more for that too.
Well, it really affects, I mean, Rutherford Ave affects Everett and some of them more than Boston. I mean, it truly does. I mean, it's
a
a major thoroughfare for everyone who avoids the bridge and drives through Everett, the 300,000 vehicles that drive down Broadway 99 through our city every day that go, you know, I mean, that's why BRT on Rutherford Ave, we can connect it all the way up 99. Maybe someday we can have a Route 1. I mean, truly take cars off the road. I mean, that's the way to do it, you know, so I would love to be part of that. I think Mayor Ballantyne also would love to be part of that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you bringing this to that. The
Oh,
body
no
is-
problem.
Yeah.
Don't mind me for my, what is it?
All right, any last questions on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we will now go to a 15-minute break. Thank you, everybody.
Can I ask you a favor? I don't know if this is doable. What I would like to do is I would like to do for the election to thank people for their confidence and to say like 15 seconds nice words about Eric. Yep. And then turn it over. But I have a 12 o'clock webinar that I am in charge of. Is there any way to move it up? Yeah, sure.
Let me just tell
Thank you very much.
people from where.
All right, well, I'll sit next to
How are you? Good to see you.
Tegan's moving over here. All right, please. All right, everybody give me your attention, please. Excuse me, we're starting. Thank you. We're going to make a quick adjustment to the agenda. Mark Drazen from MPC has another meeting he has to get to, so we're going to move agenda item up, number 9, up to this time. So we're going to have our election of the vice chair. So at the last meeting, there was a motion and a second to nominate MAPC as vice chair. There were no other nominations. So we will not be opening up the nominations again. So I would like to call for a vote on electing MAPC as the vice chair of the Boston MPO. I guess do I need another motion and second?
Accept the nomination?
Yeah. Why don't you make a motion to do that? You want to?
I'm happy to make the motion that we have the vote.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'm looking at you, Jim. Second it.
Second that emotion.
All right. Motion haven't been made and seconded. Let's call the roll, and then we can let Mark say something nice about how wonderful it is to work for the MPO. Where's Steph calling the roll?
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We had some folks move, so I'm going to call organizations, if that's all right. Mass DOT Seat 1.
Is that me? Yes. Yes.
Mass DOT Seat 2.
John Bouchard here. Yes.
Mass DOT Highway Division.
John Romari, yes.
MBTA. Massport.
Sarah Lee, yes.
MAPC.
Mark Drazen, yes.
MBTA Advisory Board,
Brian Kane, yes.
Advisory Council,
Dickens, yes.
Franny Osmond, yes. Oh, Len, you're still here. We're double dipping.
City of Boston BTD,
Jed Rowe, yes.
City of Boston BPDA,
Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
At-large City, City of Everett,
Jay Monty, yes.
At-large City, City of Newton,
David Kozis, yes.
At-large Town, Town of Arlington,
John Alessi, yes.
At-large Town, Town of Brookline,
Aaron Chute, yes.
Intercore Committee, City of Somerville,
Brad Rawson, yes.
Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton,
Jim Snyder Grant, yes.
Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly,
Aaron Schaefer, yes.
North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington, do we have Melissa? South Shore Coalition, Town of Hull,
Chris Diorio, yes.
Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood, Neponset River Regional Chamber.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Congratulations, MPC. Now, Mark, would you like to say a few words?
First of all, I'm stunned and surprised. I never expected this to happen today. I do want to say a big thank you to the members of the MPO. It remains, even though it's been for a while, an honor to be vice chair of this group. I know that I am not here all that frequently, but I enjoy it. I learn something every time that I come. And as I look around the room, as people were saying yes, I realize that, many of you are close colleagues that I have worked with in differing capacities for now 21 years at MAPC, and I am honored to have your support on behalf of MAPC's role in working with this very important group to figure out great projects to advance our regional goals. Before I turn this over, I was given instructions yesterday about the exact process of turning from one tent sign to another. I did want to say a few words about my colleague, Eric Barassa, who does sit in this seat every single month, multiple times a month. I have learned so much from Eric in the time that we have worked together at MAPC. He is such a steady hand at trying to figure out the best ways to use federal transportation funding and to use transportation funding generally to advance our goals of smart growth, regional collaboration, equity, climate resilience. Always a top spokesperson for transit, bike, and ped, and always trying to figure out a way to get people together to have a cool conversation about how to make things happen. I can't think of a better person to continue to serve as vice chair of this organization and to bring his considerable efforts and knowledge to the table. I also want to just acknowledge the fact that going forward, we are also joined by our new assistant director in transportation at MAPC, Julia Wallers, who's here today, who's no stranger to any of you. And we now have two assistant directors from that position, including Sarah, who served previously in that role, around this table. So again, thank you very much. All of you know that if MAPC can be of assistance to you on any specific issue, even beyond what is discussed at the MPO, you have only to pick up the phone or send us an email. We'll always be glad to help you. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mark. And now reverting back to the agenda order. Next item on the agenda is a presentation on federal policy and funding context from Bill Cabruz, the Executive Director of the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations. Bill, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Carouse, as the chair noted. I serve as the executive director of the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, and we are a national organization based out of the DC area representing MPOs across the country. The trouble with going later in the program is that all of my talking points have already been covered, so I may skip over a couple of things, but there are certainly a couple of items that I'd like to emphasize as well. So I'd also like to thank Tegan and the Boston MPO for being members and active and engaged members. Tegan serves on our board of directors, and it's really important that we hear perspective from Boston and from all of our members on what's actually happening on the ground. And so being here today was really insightful and helpful for me. I'm already my mind is racing about who I can put Tegan and others in contact with, and taking this back to my staff and our organization and thinking about working with our sister organizations, which I'll get to in a little bit here. But the other comment that I'll make before I jump in is, the MPO, to state the obvious, operates at the nexus of the local, regional, state, and federal government levels. And the dialogue that occurred here this morning and the ability of the MPO to bring all of those levels of government together was congressional intent. That was exactly why an MPO was created. And so it was really inspiring to hear that dialogue, hear that conversation, and see that it's functioning just as how it should. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. It was really helpful to hear the conversation, and I, like I said, my mind's already racing about how we as an organization might be able to be helpful going forward. So again, thank you, and I'll go ahead and jump in. So it's also an honor to be a part of the first annual meeting, as I understand it. That's really exciting. So appreciate again, to be a part of that. So a little bit about AMPO. As I said, we are a national organization representing the interests of MPOs across the country. There are roughly a little over 400 MPOs currently with the 2020 census. Everything that we do starts with our members in the center and flows out from there. We are a member-led and member-driven organization. Most of our programming and actions center around our values of knowledge, impact, and collaboration. Our mission is to create thriving communities by strengthening the MPOs that plan for safe, equitable, multimodal transportation networks in their respective metropolitan areas. And in order for us to achieve that, we provide support to MPO staff, whether it's technical resources or policy or otherwise. So starting with just a brief legislative history, I know Tegan brought us up to 1973, so I won't work backwards. I'll focus on going forwards. But I did just want to mention again, just echoing what I had commented on earlier. In 1973, when the MPO was created, it was congressional intent responding to what was happening not only here in the Boston region, Massachusetts, but across the country, realizing that there needed to be a strengthened local voice in the transportation decision-making process. And so what came of that was the creation of the MPO. And I'd also just like to make the point that the MPO is y'all. It's the board. It's not the MPO staff. The MPO staff are tasked with providing you with all of the information and recommendations through rigorous analysis, fiscal constraint, other things. But at the end of the day, it's up to the board to make those decisions. So I think it's inspiring to see that y'all are here and engaged and having this sort of dialogue. So jumping ahead to 1991, this was a bit of a watershed moment for the MPOs. The ICE-T, the federal reauthorization at the time, really empowered the MPOs, if you will. It doubled funding for MPO operations, allowing MPOs to hire more staff and provide more value to the process, whether it was through data analysis or otherwise. It required the state DOT to coordinate with the MPOs on the project selection process and transportation decision-making process. It also strengthened public involvement, public engagement, excuse me, which is another core function of the MPO, really getting out into communities and understanding what are the needs and how can we best meet those needs with the public interest in mind. It also added requirements to consider multimodal solutions to address congestion beyond just highways It included air quality requirements, other social factors. So it really was a big moment for the MPO community and really threw us into the forefront of regional and metropolitan planning, where over the years we'll see that just continued to grow and become strengthened. Not to diminish other milestones, because there were certainly many along the way, but in the interest of time, I'll jump all the way to the IIJA or bill. Another watershed moment, just a historic amount of funding, some really important policy provisions that were included, a little bit of Congress catching up with history. And to that point, there was certainly some foreshadowing by Governor Sargent. I won't get into this as Tegan covered it, but just in the interest of pointing it out on the timeline, the moratorium was placed in 1972. A year later, Congress recognized what was happening and created the MPO to again, bring that local voice to that process. So getting a little bit into the IIJA, again, catching up with history, addressing equity, addressing climate, addressing other environmental factors, and the grid, electrification. And in many ways, this was sort of the first time where we saw policy and funding coming together. We made strides on the policy side, but the funding wasn't necessarily there to actually achieve those policy goals, and vice versa. Now we have the funding and the policy, which is really exciting. So again, a historic investment of $567 billion in surface transportation, which impacts all of the programs that we're focused on and talking about here today. $100+ billion in grant programs, which I'll get into in a little bit. But again, we have thriving communities, we have neighborhood access and equity, we have reconnecting communities, sort of all of these new programs and policies that are looking to address some of the wrongs of the past. So really exciting opportunities. And importantly, the MPOs are directly eligible as well as local governments. And so working together between the MPOs and local governments, we're able to move the needle on some of this stuff at the local and regional level through these programs. So again, it's really exciting to see that progress. To that end, again, on the left, grants or discretionary funding, just this shows you the jump that we made between the last reauthorization and this one. It's significant. But with that, the majority of money, 76%, is still flowing through formula, which means it's coming through the state DOT. And with all of these new programs, with all of this funding, there was a comment earlier that there's just no way that we'll be able to implement this in a meaningful way if we're not working together. And so again, that nexus of local, regional, metropolitan, state, and federal, all on the same page as to how we're able to take advantage of this opportunity. Just so a little bit about how the funding flows. Highway Trust Fund, I like to use the analogy of executor, trustee, and beneficiary. The Highway Trust Fund collects all of our gas taxes, motor fuel taxes, it flows in, and then that's distributed out to all of the state DOTs and then on down to the MPOs. The point that I like to make here is the MPO doesn't actually own or operate or maintain anything. They really serve as that trustee in the best interest of the general public. Working through the public engagement process, what are the needs of any given community, and how can we sort of select those projects to meet those needs? But then at the end of the day, it's an agreement between the state DOT and the local governments or other project sponsors that move forward with construction and project implementation. So just in terms of the waterfall, if you will, again, coming from the Highway Trust Fund down to the state DOT and then to the MPO, this is planning dollars specifically. So funding to support staff and planning studies. I think we're going to hear about a safety planning study here in a little bit. So really the planning elements of what we do. And that's distributed between a formula that's agreed upon between the state DOT and all of the MPOs throughout any given state with approval from FHWA. On the capital side, a little bit different. For MPOs that serve a population of larger than 200,000, that comes with project selection and control over these buckets of money that you see here. So STBG, CMAQ and carbon reduction, which was new under the IIJA. And that money, again, flows through a similar process of coming from the Highway Trust Fund to the state and then to the MPO. There are some other contributing factors to include air quality and population and such. So shifting a little bit into the core role of MPOs, again, operating at that nexus and really doing the work that's in the best interest of the regions that we serve. There are federal requirements, although, as I mentioned, there are 400 plus MPOs across the country. We're all held to the same standard as directed by the federal government, and this covers the 10 planning factors that need to be considered as we're going through that planning and project selection process. How the projects will line up against these different factors. And then, Tegan had spoken about the 3C planning process of continuous, cooperative, and comprehensive. So when Congress had created the MPO, they had built in flexibility in terms of how it could be structured. So we see, standalone MPOs that operate as their own organization. We see MPOs that are housed within broader organizations. They come in all shapes and sizes, and I like to say that if you know one MPO, you know one MPO, because all 400 plus are different. And, they vary from a half FTE, full-time employee, running the MPO to 400 plus employees running an MPO. So there's quite a bit of diversity in how they're structured and staffed. Oops. So with the passage of the IIJA and sort of over the last, I'd say, decade or so, we're really seeing an evolution occur across the industry. MPOs traditionally focus on transportation because that was what was written into federal law and regs. We're now seeing that needle move a little bit where MPOs are working with their partners such as MAPC and others to understand that we can't operate in a silo when it comes to transportation. All of this works together. It's land use, it's affordable housing, it's broadband, it's multiple things, economic development, accessibility, and how do we sort of work with our partners in our respective regions to bring all those things together so that we're making the best decision possible on a transportation project and otherwise. Tegan and I were actually just in Pittsburgh recently, and we met with the Pittsburgh MPO, and they talked about how they were able to use some of their planning dollars to do a broadband study, which was really interesting. They had identified some inequities through the pandemic in terms of, folks not being able to access a reliable broadband, and so they were, as the regional entity, tasked with doing a study to see where are those inequities and how can we help address some of them going forward. And so they were able to use some of their federal dollars to do that, which was really interesting. So, as with any new program and all this funding, there's going to be challenges. And so we've been working with our members over the last, let's say, 18 months to 2 years on really understanding what are the challenges related to implementation. These are a couple that rose to the top. So matching funds. The federal funds fund up to 80% of any given project. The other 20% has to come from local governments or otherwise. As I understand it, that's a little bit different here in Massachusetts, where the state DOT provides that 20%. So that's nice because, yeah, right. But it's certainly led to some significant challenges across the country, not only on the formula side, as I mentioned, but with all of the grant opportunities. Most of them require the 20% match, and trying to find that money is certainly challenging. Again, coming out of the pandemic, local revenues are down. It's starting to bounce back a little bit, but certainly still a challenge. Supply chain and inflation still an issue. It's really leading to a lot of delays in getting the construction moving and getting project implementation moving. And then, again, just to reiterate, all of the new programs and all of the funding, it's a lot. I believe there were 18 or 20 new grant programs that MPOs were directly eligible for. And it's the challenge because there's no guarantee that you're actually going to be successful in getting these. And so it's a lot of staff time, it's a lot of work to put together those applications, understand all of this, again, with no ROI guaranteed. So we're trying to help navigate some of that because we wanted to make sure that MPOs are taking advantage of these programs but it's still a lot to keep track of. And then finally, workforce. So we're just seeing real challenges across the industry at all levels, local, regional, state, federal, on folks retiring, on folks changing positions, and there's not a really strong pipeline of folks either coming up into the profession or a pool of applicants that MPOs are able to pull from. So it's been a challenge and has sort of led to some delays and some confusion that we're working on too. So what are we doing to address some of these challenges, and what do we sort of do as an organization? Well, we work with our partners. We work with the National League of Cities, AASHTO, NACO. AASHTO is the states, NACO is the counties, NARC, which I know MAPC is involved in. So we work with all of our partners, whether it's the stakeholder groups or on the government side, USDOT, US Census Bureau, really advocating and addressing some of these challenges directly with them in Washington, D.C., so that we can try to move through them collectively and together. The other piece is we advocate on the policy side. We work with our partners to really work with Congress, serving the best interest of the MPOs and local governments. Believe it or not, there's already a lot of discussion on the next transportation bill. And so we're trying to set that up in a positive way on behalf of our members and our partners. NOFO Tracker just mentioned, all of these grants. We put together an interactive tracker where you can actually filter by your entity. So if you're a local government, if you're a transit authority, if you're an MPO, you can filter through our tracker, and it's updated every week with the latest and greatest, and it sort of gives you a good breakdown of what the program is, what the requirements are, and all of this. So that's up on our website. And then finally, coming back to that workforce issue, I'm pleased to announce that just this week, we actually launched the MPO Institute. We're standing up a sort of one-stop shop with multiple audiences in mind, whether you're MPO staff or you are on a board of an MPO. We'll be putting together courses and training and content to help sort of better educate folks on the MPO and how all of this stuff works. So we look forward to getting that off the ground in the spring, and I'll definitely share more information with Tegan as that comes together. So with that, I will stop and say thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bill. That was really good. That was very informative. Questions from the members? Dennis?
Thanks. Great presentation, Bill. This may be a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I haven't really thought it through yet.
That's always good.
One of the themes I've heard this morning is around the notion that transportation is just not a silo. There's economic development, there's housing, there's other aspects to it that all need to come into play when you're making a determination. My question is that are there any MPOs that have or thinking about either having membership in those disciplines or staff, so that when projects are reviewed, that there's another kind of lens to it that's from either housing, economic development, or some other one? Is there any example of that?
Yeah, happy to address that. So as I said, MPOs come in all shapes and sizes, and there's a couple of different approaches. In some cases, those fields, if you will, may serve on a board in a formal capacity, but often what we see are MPOs will have advisory committees, and that's sort of an opportunity to bring in those additional perspectives and make sure that everybody's working together. And as far as the staff goes, yeah, we're certainly seeing that across the country. The MPOs that have the funds and resources to be able to bring on data scientists and economic development and workforce and all of these things, there's definitely a move in that direction, absolutely. And I think it's critical, and I think we're going to see more of it. It unfortunately comes down to just a matter of resources. Part of the workforce challenge, and we've always seen this, there's always the challenge of public sector versus private sector as far as base salary and benefits and all these things. And so we're always competing. Not only has that been exacerbated where the private sector is just able to offer better benefits and better base salary, but now we as the MPOs in transportation world are sort of competing with each other for planners too. So I just saw that one MPO had hired away a senior planner from another MPO across the country, and so they're fighting with one another over talent. So it's been a challenge. But anyway, yes, we definitely see that.
Other questions? Brad?
Thank you, Chair. Bill, thanks so much for the presentation. I really think it's very, very timely and important for you to be here working with our great staff, our great board members, our great agency partners at an annual meeting milestone like this. As you heard our secretary say, we're in a moment of crisis in Massachusetts. So connecting our work to the best practices nationally is fundamental to who we are as a region, but we can't do it without partners like you. So thanks for taking the time to be here. My question is about some of the training programs that you mentioned specifically. In my community, we have recently launched a series of transportation management associations, nonprofits, trying to help get cars off the road and give people more authentic opportunities to get to work, shopping, play, and daily life without driving. We've seen tremendous capacity building across Massachusetts, Chair, that this is becoming a standard. And so I want to connect the dots here a little bit. You mentioned training programs. The TMAs caught my attention specifically, but there was also MPO 101 you mentioned.
Yep.
How do organizations like ours work with organizations like yours to actually participate in those training programs? Is it a fee-for-service model? Is it the kind of thing that you all roll into your operating budgets and make available nationally? I'd just be interested in how we take the next step to figure out who among us at the staff, board, or agency partner level can benefit and can benefit soon in spring 2024, as you noted.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your interest. It's good to hear that it's a little bit of validation for us that there is interest and a need for this. We had heard that and we had done some surveys, but it's always nice to hear it in person. So this will be a combination of virtual and in-person training. And I'm happy to put you in touch with my colleague, Caitlin Cook, who is running point on this internally for us. But the idea is to start with the MPO 101, the federal funding, and then if you're making a jump from non-TMA to TMA and understanding sort of what that means as far as requirements and staff needs and all these things. And so all of that, the goal is to have that available virtually in the spring with the option to also have it be an in-person training if that's something that would be of interest. And yes, it'll be a fee for service. The Institute is actually being run through our 501c3, which is independent of our 501c4 AMPO, and so we will have to implement a fee for service and some other things to make that successful and get it up off the ground. But we have done a scan of other organizations, and we're coming in at the really low end on what we're charging. We understand, budgets are tight, and so we want to get this out there. We want to get this information out there, and so we're not looking to make money off of it, but just need to cover some costs. So happy to follow up afterwards as well.
Thank you, Bill. Questions? Other questions? Seeing none. Bill, I'd just like to thank you for inviting Tegan to be on the board. I mean, I'm sure it's been wonderful for you. I think the world of Tegan, but it's also been wonderful for us. The interaction between you and the MPO staff has borne fruit already, and I expect it will continue to do so. So thank you so much.
Great, sure. Yeah, we're lucky to have her, and our strength is our network. And so, like I said, my mind is already racing about how we can make some connections, and even folks learning from y'all here on all the great work that you are doing. I know it's a really challenging time, and there's a lot going on, but I don't think that should diminish all the great work that you are doing. So, look forward to sharing all that as well.
So much.
Thank you.
And the next item on our agenda is the Vision Zero Action Plan Development Update. Rebecca Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rebecca Morgan, the Director of Projects and Partnerships with the Boston Region MPO staff. I'm going to start off with sharing some data. 543 people were killed on roadways in the Boston region due to motor vehicle crashes. Nearly 4,800 more were seriously injured. People walking and biking represented 35% of those fatalities and more than 20% of the serious injuries. And all of these trends are on the rise. they're going up. This board agrees that this is unacceptable, and the only acceptable number is 0. And this is why this board adopted a Vision Zero goal for the region. This is an ambitious goal, and it's attainable, but not without working together. Which is why this board decided to apply for a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. The Safe Streets and Roads for All grant is a discretionary grant that was established as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law based on the National Roadway Strategy toward zero fatalities and zero fatalities and serious injuries on our nation's roadways. The Safe Streets and Roads for All grant was one that we applied for a year ago. The Boston Region MPO was awarded $2.7 million to develop a regional Vision Zero action plan, which includes a 20% match from Mass DOT. This plan will both set the framework as well as the roadmap toward reaching a Vision Zero goal that's been set. The Vision Zero plan will really include 2 primary things. 1, understanding the problems, and 2, identifying the solutions. So first, in terms of understanding the problems, we'll be conducting a safety analysis to understand where the high-risk locations are and what the characteristics and features are of those locations. We'll be conducting a robust engagement process, which will include meeting with members of the public to understand and obtain local knowledge, to understand what safety means in those specific communities. We'll also be reviewing policies and processes that are in place that may be barriers to reaching Vision Zero. So those are the main elements of understanding the problem. Now to, what are the solutions? We'll be recommending policy and process changes. We'll be identifying projects to be implemented. We'll also plan to establish a path forward for funding, determine the timeline of those implementations, as well as identify the responsible entities. As we embark on this work, we will focus on establishing both an ambitious plan as well as an actionable one. We can set the plan, but we can't do that alone. We need to do this together. We need your support to reach broadly into the communities in which you represent, to help us to partner with your regional partners and subregions, and to engage them in this work. There are a number of opportunities to get involved. One is to join the Vision Zero Task Force, which will include 15 to 20 people from across the region that will meet for the next year and a half on a quarterly basis to really dig into the details of this work. So reviewing the safety analysis results, discussing the policies that are in place, prioritizing projects, and determining funding moving forward. In addition to the task force, there are also opportunities to engage with us throughout the process, help us establishing these partnerships, not just now for development, but thinking forward to implementation, as well as understanding really specific safety challenges in your communities and the priorities that you would like to set. So you'll find information on how to apply for the Vision Zero Task Force on the one-pager that should be included in your packet. It's also online in our calendar links. My contact information is also included there. So if you have questions or ideas or would like to just discuss this work further, I'd appreciate you calling or reaching out to me. Thank you for your time. I look forward to working with you on this important initiative. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rebecca. Questions? Brad.
Thank you, Chair. Rebecca, team, thanks for all the hard work. As you noted, this board has asked for a practice area to be built to take our long-standing commitments to safety, but really codify them, consistent with global, national, regional, and local Vision Zero action plans. We just commemorated World Day of Remembrance, an international moment to take a moment and reflect on the tens of thousands of lives lost just in our country, just last week. And in Somerville, we were delighted to be part of a regional coalition that included Medford, Arlington, Cambridge, and Somerville activists and elected officials and key state agency partners. I want to take my hat off to the Department of Conservation and Recreation, who took the time to send senior level staff to a grassroots commemoration event on a DCR-controlled roadway where we had a recent pedestrian fatal crash. We are all in this together. And one of the questions that I'll have for you, Rebecca, that we'll want to keep in mind going forward is, what is the relationship of this MPO's Vision Zero Action Plan development working in concert with other Mass DOT initiatives? We heard the Secretary talk about how we are among the best in the business nationally on integrating a safe systems approach into our work, and yet we can always continue to learn. Just a couple of days ago, I served on an interview panel with some academic researchers commissioned by Mass DOT at UMass as well as Northeastern. And I'm going to be looking not just in this meeting today, but for ongoing signals of coordination and cross-pollination between DOT efforts in the Vision Zero space and the development of our regional SS4A grant program. So I would encourage all of us to be asking these questions. Are we connecting the dots, or are we at risk of having this MPO's work exist in a vacuum and not adequately connecting to other key agency partners like DOT, like the DCR that I mentioned, even quasi-governmental agencies like Massports era. So let's all really focus on this unique opportunity of the $2.7 million of federal funding. If you are a community who have not yet volunteered to serve on this task force, please take Rebecca's request at face value. Volunteer your time. Show up for an extra meeting. We have a really unique opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Other questions? Ken Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about coordination. You mentioned the public process within the MPO and what Brad was talking about too, but several other MPOs in the Commonwealth have gotten also planning grants to do plans for their region, as well as I think 4 communities within the MPO have gotten grants to do their own individual plans, which I know you're working on coordinating with them. I guess just a question for things, are you planning on coordinating with any of the other MPOs on, say, common issues? For example, Massachusetts does not have a primary seatbelt law, for example. So is there any thought about coordinating at some level among the plans that are being developed?
Yes, and we've already started to do some of that. A number of these plans are being launched, as you mentioned, and with other MPOs, and so we've started connecting in regards to initially thinking about like the kind of work that's being done and kind of sharing what approaches we're planning on taking. We certainly plan to continue to coordinate with them. We're also part of a peer exchange nationally with other larger MPOs and sharing a bit about what we're thinking and where they are in the process, and trying to collaborate also at the national level. So certainly we will be collaborating with other MPOs. I think that they're an extremely important partner in this initiative.
Thank you, Rebecca. Other questions? Seeing none, again, a great presentation. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Next item on the agenda is an action item on the ad hoc committee recommendations on the memorandum of understanding. It was supposed to be Tom Bent, but unfortunately he's not here today. He couldn't make it, and so Jen Rowe has volunteered to take over. Thanks, Jen.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, I'm Jen Rowe with the City of Boston, representing Mayor Michelle Wu. Had the opportunity to serve on this ad hoc committee and presenting on behalf of Tom Bent, who chaired the committee. Unfortunately, couldn't be here today. I'd first like to start off by recognizing and appreciating Tom's hard work in chairing this committee these past 3 months. It took a lot of time and his effort, and we really appreciate that. Also, I know he wanted to thank the other committee members, Derek Cravat, John Romano, Brian Kane, Eric Brassa, Len Diggins, and Dennis Giambetti, as well as MPO staff who supported the committee, including Tegan, Annette, Aaron, and David. So thank you so much, everyone, for all being a part of this. So this board's memorandum of understanding was last fully revised in July of 2011, with minor updates approved by the board on July 20th of this year. Those Recent revisions were made to address a corrective action cited in the 2022 Federal Certification Review final report. And this board moved to approve those revisions within the deadline set by that report. At the same time, the MPO recognized that there were further recommendations for updates to the MOU coming from their federal report, as well as some other sources, such as some work in other committees of this board. This board appointed an ad hoc committee to discuss and recommend a process to explore and suggest additional updates to the MOU. Tom Bent was appointed chair of that committee, and I'm here to present those recommendations. So the ad hoc committee recommends that it actually continue its work and become a MOU update committee, tasked with carrying out the processes to update the MOU. We recommend that the MOU Update Committee is composed of the same or similar members to the ad hoc committee. We also discussed and recommended topics that should be addressed in this committee's work, including clarifying any previous ambiguity in the MOU, representing regional transit authorities in decision-making, revising the description of the role of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, updating references to the fiduciary agent agreement, refining descriptions of agency collaboration, and establishing expectations for board member development. All of these are documented in the memo that was provided for this meeting. The committee recommends that the first meeting take place in January of 2024 and focus on, at minimum, reviewing federal regulations of MOUs, peer MPO MOUs, and the list of proposed topics. At this meeting, the MOU Update Committee would also propose a work plan and schedule for updates to the full MPO board, anticipated to occur within the next 6 to 9 months. This committee also recommends that the MOU Update Committee work with MPO staff to establish an engagement plan for the Boston region beyond just ourselves as board members. This could include some outreach and information sharing with the 97 municipalities within the Boston Region MPO, with the support of MAPC's sub-regional meeting framework. So in closing, the committee requests that the board make a motion to establish an MOU Update Committee based on the current makeup of the ad hoc committee, tasked with carrying out the processes outlined in the memorandum to recommend updates to the MOU. This committee would have a limited time frame within which to complete its work, and the expectation would be that it would recommend updates to this full board for consideration and approval. So that is the recommendation, and I am happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Before we take the motion, are there any questions for Jen? Seeing none, Jen, you want to make the motion, and then I'll just take a second? Might be easiest.
Great. So the motion is to establish.
Wait a minute, Jen, I'm sorry, there is a question. I am so sorry.
Hi, this is a question and maybe something for the board's consideration. Erin Chute, Town of Brookline. I understand that the ad hoc committee was established, in essence, to establish a process, and this is now moving on to doing the real kind of work on the MOU. I'd wonder if this board, through the chair, would consider addition to the membership of this committee, and potentially members of the board could reach out to the chair and at the chair's discretion add other members. So wanted to suggest that for consideration.
I can answer that one. Absolutely. So I think as Jen mentioned, they want to have the first meeting in January. We're going to have an item on the agenda later today, I guess next, about committee slates. But for this committee that wasn't going to exist as a permanent committee, we will certainly take additional interest and add people to the committee if people desire. Now, Jen, make your motion.
All right. So I will motion to establish an MOU Update Committee based on the current makeup, with, of course, as we mentioned, possible additions, tasked with carrying out the processes outlined in the memorandum to recommend updates to the MOU.
Thank you. Is there a second? Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, MAPC. I'll second that motion.
Please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Jillian Linnell.
I believe Ally Clayman is on the,
Got you. Allie Clayman.
Allie Clayman, yes.
Thank you. Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane.
Kane, yes.
Leonard Diggins.
Oh, sorry, Franny. I couldn't hear. Franny Osmond, yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Artek.
Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald.
Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty.
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis.
David Kozis, yes.
John Alessi.
John Alessi, yes.
Aaron Shute.
Aaron Shute, yes.
Brad Rawson.
Brad Rawson, yes.
Jim Snyder Grant.
Jim Snyder Grant, yes.
Dennis Giambetti.
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Aaron Schaefer.
Aaron Schaefer, yes.
Melissa Tintakoulis.
Melissa Tintakoulis, yes.
Chris Diorio.
Chris Diorio, yes.
Rachel Benson.
Rachel Benson, yes.
And Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Great. Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
thank you very much, Judy. Thank you, Jen. The final action on the agenda, final item on the agenda is the action item for the appointment of committee slates. Has my name next to it, but I think there's going to be something projected. So I'm going to move over there because I can. Listen, I'm actually much more used to being on this podium than up there anyway. So what you see before you is a slide on the standing committees for the MPO. So there is an Administration and Finance Committee. The following, I won't read them, but you can see who the members are. We will be, at the end of this presentation, we will be taking a motion to appoint all of these committees. And we will take, again, 2 new members and not new members, but new representatives. If you have a desire to be on one of these committees, you can either state it today or we can always add people, okay? So there's Administration and Finance Committee. Brian Kane is the chair. It actually does the budget for the CTPS. It does policies. It does the operating plan. Meets on a, Brian? Quarterly basis, except when the budget is being prepared, when they meet at least monthly, probably more than that. Congestion management process is Jay Monty is the chair. It looks at the congestion of the Commonwealth and, well, actually not the Commonwealth, I'm sorry, the MPO, and ways to possibly solve it and or address it through planning processes. The Unified Planning Work Program develops the planning process for the MPO and chooses the projects that we will spend our planning money on an annual basis. It is chaired by MassDOT, Derek Cravat, who is waving over there. He is the chair. Then the TIP Process and Engagement and Readiness Committee is chaired by the City of Boston. I believe that is Jen Rowe, our very own Jen Rowe. And that is a process that looks at the process for developing the TIP. And actually, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a committee that is going to also take on the responsibility of things like the scoring system and issues like that. And all these committees are committees that will then bring their processes to, or their recommendations to the board. So none of these committees make the final decision. And is there any other committees, or do we cover it in one slide? We covered it in one slide. So I'm going to go back there now and take a motion to approve this slate of members, again, with the understanding that if other people want to be on these committees, please let us know.
Hurry up, Dave.
I got to say, if I could see better and wasn't quite so old, I could have done it from here, but I can't see that. So is there a motion to approve this slate of committees, again, with the understanding that if people who are new to the committee would like, or to the Boston MPO, would like to be added, please just let us know and we will accommodate your request. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa with MAPC. I'll make a motion as the chair presented today.
Is there a second? Hand that mic to Brian Kane.
Second?
Oh, thank you, Dennis. Dennis Giambetti is seconded. There's a question. Ken Miller.
Just a question about, does the operating plan talk anything about how the chairperson of each committee is selected or elected? Is that?
Yeah. I believe what the operating plan says is the chair is designated by the MPO, by the chair. And so what happens is so for everybody to understand, we solicit interest from members, and then Eric and I discuss who we think might be a good chair, and then we reach out to that person and see if they are willing to take on the additional responsibility beyond just being a member. And if that person says yes, then we select them. If that person says no, then we go back and have another discussion about, well, like if Jen had said, no, I'm too busy, we would have had a discussion and said, okay, which of these other people would be a great person?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Allie Clayman,
Clayman, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Kane, yes.
Franny Osmond,
Franny Osmond, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald,
Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Aaron Shute, yes.
Brad Rawson,
Brad Russin, yes.
Jim Snyder Grant,
Jim Snyder Grant, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Aaron Schaefer,
Aaron Schaefer, yes.
Melissa Tintakoulis,
Melissa Tintakoulis, yes.
Chris Diorio,
Chris Diorio, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
and Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And before we conclude, I'd just like to say again what a wonderful job staff did. Everybody who did their presentations and everybody who supported us, thank you all so much. That being said, we are concluded. I need a motion to adjourn, please, and please state your name for the record in making the motion.
Mr. Chair, Eric Barassa, MAPC, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And
Great
is there a
meeting.
second?
Second, Brian Kane.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Eric. Motion has been made and seconded. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much.